There's a special kind of pain that comes from being misunderstood, especially by your own family. But the older you get, the more you realize you don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes silence does the loudest talking. My name is Richard. I'm 71 years old, a retired history teacher, and a widower for almost a decade. I raised my only son, Daniel, on my own after my wife passed away. I gave him everything I could: love, education, and the kind of discipline that builds character. When he married Sophie, I was genuinely happy. She was young, smart, and charming, or so she appeared, but charm can be a mask. And I learned that the hard way. At first, everything seemed fine. Sophie would visit often, bring me homemade cookies, and call me Dad. I felt lucky. But slowly, little things began to change. Daniel stopped calling as often. When he did, his tone felt distant. When I'd visit their house, Sophie would greet me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. One evening, during dinner, I noticed something. Whenever I tried to share a story from the past, Sophie would interrupt and say, "Oh, Daniel, your dad loves repeating the same things, doesn't he?" Everyone would laugh, even Daniel, though awkwardly. It stung, but I let it go. After all, families survive on patience, but soon patience wasn't enough. One Sunday, Daniel came over alone. He looked upset. "Dad," he said, "I need to ask you something. Did you really tell Sophie that I was irresponsible and she should handle the money?" I froze. "What?" "No, of course not," he sighed. "She said you told her I'm too careless to manage a household." I felt my heart sink. "Daniel, I'd never say that." "You know me." He looked uncertain. "I don't know, Dad. She said you've been making little comments about her since day one." It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My own son, the boy I raised with my bare hands, was starting to doubt me. I could have yelled, defended myself, demanded he trust me. But I did in single quotes. Instead I said quietly, "If that's what you believe, son, then there's nothing more I can say." He left that night without hugging me. Weeks went by. I noticed the change. Sophie stopped visiting. Daniel's calls became shorter, colder. Then, one day at a family gathering, it all came crashing down. We were sitting at the dinner table, Sophie's parents, Daniel, a few friends. Everyone was cheerful except me. Then, Sophie spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You know, Daniel's father has a way of making people feel small. He once told me I wasn't good enough for this family." I was stunned. The table went silent. All eyes turned to me. I looked at her, calm, steady, and quiet. "I never said that," I replied. She smirked. "Oh, maybe you forgot. Old people forget things easily." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it cut deep. Daniel looked away. He didn't defend me. I sat there, feeling like a stranger among my own family. That night, I drove home slowly, my heart heavier than ever. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone, but something inside me whispered, "Don't react. Just wait." And I did. You see, when someone lies to hurt you, they eventually trip over their own words. All you have to do is stay still long enough to let truth catch up. A few weeks later, Daniel called again. "Dad, we're hosting a small get-together for Sophie's birthday. You should come." I hesitated, but agreed. Maybe it was time to face things. Quietly, I arrived with a small gift. A book of poetry that Sophie once said she liked. The room was full of guests. Laughter everywhere. Sophie was the center of attention, glowing, charming, controlling every conversation. When I greeted her, she smiled sweetly. "Oh, Mr. Richard, you came. How thoughtful." Then, loud enough for others to hear, she added, "I hope you didn't come just to criticize me again." People laughed awkwardly. I forced a smile. During dinner, one of Daniel's friends asked, "So, Mr. Richard, what do you think about Sophie's business idea?" Before I could answer, Sophie cut in, "Oh, let's not ask him. He'll probably say I'm wasting Daniel's money again." This time I saw Daniel's face. He looked unsure. Maybe he was starting to see the cracks. I said nothing. I just smiled and looked around the table. Then I spoke softly. "You know, Sophie, I never said any of the things you claim. But I do admire your confidence. You must really believe your own stories." The room went silent. She tried to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, Mr. Richard, you're so serious." I nodded. "Only when the truth matters." And then fate intervened. Daniel's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. "Dad," he said slowly, "you're not going to believe this. But I just got a message from Aunt Lisa. She said Sophie called her last month pretending to be you. She recorded the call and sent it to her husband." Sophie froze. Daniel played the audio. In it, Sophie's voice clearly said, "Lisa, this is Richard. I don't trust Sophie with money. She's careless." The room went dead silent. Sophie's face turned white. Daniel looked at her in disbelief. "Sophie, why would you do this?" She stammered. I was just joking. It was a prank." I stood up calmly. "No, Sophie. It was a plan. You wanted everyone to hate me, and for a while you succeeded." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." I looked at Daniel. "Son, I told you, truth doesn't need to defend itself. It just needs time." He looked shattered. "Dad, I'm so sorry for doubting you." I placed my hand on his shoulder. "You're my son? A father's love doesn't break that easily." The guests sat in awkward silence as Sophie began to cry. Her mask had finally cracked. I picked up my coat and said, "I don't hate you, Sophie, but I do hope you learn destroying others never builds you up." And with that I left. A week later, Daniel came to my house. He looked exhausted, humbled. "Dad," he said, "Sophie moved out for a while. She admitted everything. I don't even know what to do." I poured him a cup of tea and said, "Forgive her, son. Not for her sake, for yours. Anger is heavy to carry." He nodded slowly. "How did you stay so calm through all this?" I smiled. "Because I've lived long enough to know, truth always finds a way to surface. You don't have to dig for it." He hugged me tightly, and for the first time in months, I felt peace again. A few months later, Sophie came to see me. Her eyes were swollen, her voice quiet. "Mr. Richard," she said, "I just wanted to apologize. I don't know what came over me. I thought if I made you look bad, Daniel would love me more." I looked at her gently. "Love built on lies never lasts, Sophie. But it's never too late to start again, honestly." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for not humiliating me in front of everyone that night." I smiled. "That was never my goal. My goal was to show you peace is more powerful than anger. You see, my friends, revenge doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes the calmest response becomes the loudest lesson. When someone tries to ruin your name, don't waste your breath fighting lies. Just stand still, keep your dignity, and let time expose what truth cannot hide. Because at the end of the day, storms come and go, but calm seas always return to reflect the truth."